Have you ever been erased from your own story? Have you ever stood in a room full of people who know your name, your history, your sacrifices, only to hear them act like you never existed? That's what my family did to me. And what they didn't realize in that moment was that their betrayal wasn't the end of me. It was the beginning of the fire that would burn their carefully constructed little empire to the ground. Before I tell you exactly how I ruined them, let me pause here. If you've ever been made to feel invisible by the people who should have had your back, you're going to feel this story in your bones. If you've ever swallowed betrayal until it curdled into rage, stay with me. And hey, if you're new here, hit that like button and subscribe. This channel is where we don't just tell revenge stories, we breathe them back to life. My name is Rachel Morgan. I'm 32 now, an architect living in Denver. But this story takes me back 6 years, to when I was 26. Still building my career, still trying to carve out respect in a family that only valued what sparkled. My parents, Harold and Vivian Morgan, were what you'd call old money comfortable. Not billionaires, not celebrities, but the kind of people who sat on charity boards and hosted wine tastings for the hospital foundation. My dad was a respected cardiologist. My mom came from a banking family. Their lives revolved around prestige, reputation, and appearances. And then there were their daughters. Claire, my younger sister by 4 years, was the golden child. She followed in Dad's footsteps into medicine, bright and pretty, the one they paraded at galas. If Claire sneezed, my parents would frame the tissue. Me, I was the disappointment. I didn't want medicine. I didn't want banking. I wanted to build. Since I was little, I'd sketch houses on napkins, stack Legos into skylines. When I said I wanted to study architecture, my parents looked at me like I'd announced I was joining the circus. "You'll never make a real living." Dad scoffed. "Such a waste of potential," Mom sighed. And Claire? She smirked. Guess one of us has to be the failure. I put myself through school anyway. Scholarships, side jobs, ramen dinners, late nights at drafting tables, while Claire's tuition was quietly covered by trust fund money. They never came to my portfolio shows. They never asked about my projects. But despite it all, I made it. I graduated with honors, landed a job at a mid-sized firm, and slowly started proving myself. Still, to them, it was never enough. The breaking point came in the most unexpected way, the Morgan family home. My parents owned a historic Victorian on Hawthorne Street, a beautiful but crumbling thing they liked to boast about but never actually took care of. When I was 24, they asked me to help out with renovations. Not because they suddenly believed in me, but because free labor was better than paying a professional. And I did it. I poured months into drafting restoration plans, overseeing contractors, balancing modern updates with the home's history. I didn't ask for a dime. I thought, stupidly, maybe this was my chance to prove my worth to them. By the time it was done, the house was stunning. The neighborhood association even gave it an award for preservation. But when people praised my parents for the renovations, they didn't say Rachel designed it. They said, "Oh yes, Claire helped us so much with ideas." At first, I thought I'd misheard. Then I realized my parents had been telling everyone the doctor-daughter had guided the project, that the golden child had the vision. My blueprints, my sweat, my endless nights, erased. I confronted them once. "Why would you give Claire credit for my work?" Mom waved a hand. "Oh, Rachel, don't be dramatic. It's all in the family. Besides, people respect Claire. It just sounds better coming from her." Sounds better. Those words sliced deeper than any knife. But the ultimate betrayal came 2 years later, at Dad's retirement gala. It was the kind of glittering event my parents lived for. Black ties, champagne fountains, city officials shaking hands. They rented out the ballroom of the downtown Marriott. I wasn't invited. I only found out about it when a former neighbor sent me photos on Facebook. My parents smiling, Claire glowing on stage, a slideshow playing behind them, and then I saw it, pictures of the renovated house. My work. And beneath them, a caption, "Designed with love by Claire Morgan." My knees went weak. The house I had resurrected, the project I had slaved over, claimed by the sister who had done nothing but breeze through on privilege. And in front of hundreds of people, my family erased me entirely. I remember sitting on my bed that night, scrolling through photos of the gala, bile rising in my throat. Claire clutching a microphone, giving a speech about family effort, Mom crying as if she were moved, Dad beaming with pride. And me, sitting alone, invisible. That was the moment something inside me shifted. I had begged for recognition for years, and they had answered, loud and clear, I would never get it, not while I played by their rules. So I stopped playing. I didn't cry that night, not long, anyway. I stared at those photos, my hands trembling, and thought, if they want to erase me, I'll make sure the whole world sees what they've done. If they want to act like I don't matter, I'll make them wish I'd stayed silent. That was the seed of revenge. Tiny, sharp, and impossible to ignore. In the days after Dad's retirement gala, I walked around in a haze. It felt like the floor beneath me had tilted, and I was constantly on the verge of losing balance. I kept replaying those photos in my head, Claire's smug smile, my parents' gleaming pride, the slideshow flashing my work with her name. I didn't tell anyone right away, not my coworkers, not my friends. I carried the humiliation like a secret burn across my skin. Every time I opened social media, there it was, another tag, another compliment about Claire's design skills. People wrote comments like, wow, Claire, is there anything you can't do? And following in her dad's footsteps, brains and talent. It was like swallowing glass. At work, I buried myself in projects. I told myself that if I could design one more clean, beautiful building, maybe the ache in my chest would quiet. But it didn't. My hands would shake on the drafting table. My pen would hover over blueprints while my mind replayed Mom's voice. It just sounds better coming from her. Better. Not truer. Not earned. Just better. One night, I sat in my tiny apartment with the lights off, staring at the renovation photos I'd saved. I zoomed in on details, the stained glass window I'd fought to preserve, the open concept kitchen I'd reimagined, the delicate trim work I'd insisted contractors restore instead of replace. Each detail was mine, and yet, in every caption, in every speech, in every photo, it belonged to Claire now. I pressed my palms to my eyes and whispered, "What is wrong with me?" But the answer came fast and sharp. Nothing. What's wrong is them. It didn't take long for the cracks to spread further. One afternoon, I ran into Mrs. Delaney, an old neighbor who'd always favored my sister. She spotted me at the grocery store and said, "Rachel, I didn't know you were in town." "Oh, I just have to say, that house looks magnificent. Claire has such vision." I froze, holding a carton of milk like it was a weapon. "She didn't," I started, but Mrs. Delaney barreled on. "Your parents must be so proud. Claire's really putting the Morgans on the map. You must be thrilled for her." My throat burned. "Yes," I muttered, forcing a smile. "Thrilled." I walked away before she could see the tears flooding my eyes. That night, I scribbled furiously in my journal. I wrote down every slight, every misattributed compliment, every dismissive comment. I needed proof, even if only for myself. My handwriting carved grooves into the paper. They erased me. They made me invisible, but I will not stay invisible. Meanwhile, my parents and Claire basked in the glow of their lie. Articles popped up in the local paper. Morgan family honored for historic home renovation. Claire was quoted saying, "It was important to me to balance tradition with modern needs." Important to me. My stomach churned. Then came the radio interview. A local station invited Claire on to talk about her design project. I listened in my office with headphones, bile rising, as she described how she hand-picked every element of the house. She even claimed she had convinced contractors to restore instead of demolish. Word for word, my decisions, my vision. I slammed my pen on the desk so hard it snapped. My coworker poked his head in. "You okay?" I forced a smile, hiding the broken pen. "Fine, just fine." "Well, that's my biggest coworker. I really have fun to address it." But inside, I was unraveling. Sleep abandoned me. I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying every memory of my family's dismissals. The time Dad sighed when I said I'd gotten an A in design theory. The time Mom said architecture was cute, like scrapbooking. The time Claire whispered to her friends, "Rachel's basically the family's charity case." Each memory was a spark, and together they lit a bonfire of rage in my chest. Still, part of me wavered. Was I being dramatic? Was I overreacting? That's what they always said. Maybe I should just swallow it, keep moving, prove myself through work. But then I remembered that night in the kitchen years earlier, when I'd asked Mom why she gave Claire credit for my designs. Her exact words, "People respect Claire. It just sounds better coming from her." I whispered those words to myself over and over until they stopped sounding like an excuse and started sounding like a confession. They didn't care about truth. They cared about image. And that was their weakness. The escalation hit its peak when I finally went home for a family dinner. I hadn't seen them since the gala. My stomach was in knots as I pulled up the long driveway to the Victorian, the house I had breathed back to life. The sight of it made my throat tighten. It was mine, in ways no one would ever admit. Inside, the dining room was buzzing. Claire was already there, hair glossy, nails polished, wearing a necklace I knew cost more than my rent. She looked up as I entered, a slow smile spreading. "Rachel," she said sweetly, "so glad you could join us. We were just talking about the renovation again." I sat down, hands trembling under the table. Dad poured wine, beaming. "Your sister's become quite the star, Rachel. The community is really impressed." "Yeah," Claire chimed in, her voice lilting. "It's been amazing. People keep asking me for design advice now. Can you believe it?" My fork clattered against the plate. "Since you've been taking credit for my work." The table went still. Mom's eyes narrowed. Dad cleared his throat. Claire laughed high and sharp. "Oh, Rachel," she said. "Don't be petty. We all contributed." I stared at her. "Really? What exactly did you contribute, Claire? Besides existing?" Her smile faltered. "Excuse me? You didn't draft the plans. You didn't negotiate with contractors. You didn't even step foot on site. That house is mine. Every detail. And yet, you've let the whole town believe it was you." Silence. Then Mom spoke, her tone cutting. "Rachel, lower your voice. This isn't the place." "This is exactly the place," I snapped. My chest heaved, my vision blurred with angry tears. "You erased me. Again. And you think I'm just going to sit here and let it happen?" Dad slammed his hand on the table. "That's enough. You're embarrassing yourself." "No," I said, my voice trembling but clear. "I'm embarrassing you." The rest of dinner was cold, brittle. Claire smirked, Mom sniffed, Dad glowered. I left before dessert, my hands shaking so badly I could barely unlock my car. But as I drove away, something hardened inside me. That was the last time they would get away with it. The next weeks were a blur of quiet rage. I stopped answering their calls. I stopped showing up for family obligations. Instead, I worked, saved money, and started sketching. Not blueprints this time, but plans. Plans for something bigger, sharper, more permanent. I knew their patterns. I knew their weakness for image, for public admiration. And I knew the truth could crack that facade wide open. I didn't know exactly how yet, but I knew this. When I struck, it wouldn't be in a private fight at the dinner table. It would be in the brightest light possible, where everyone could see the Morgans for who they truly were. Late one night, I opened my journal again and wrote one line in bold, angry letters. "They stole my work. I will steal their reputation." Revenge doesn't begin with fire. It begins with silence, the kind that makes people think you've given up. And that's exactly what I let my family believe. After that dinner, I cut them off. No calls, no visits, no forced smiles at Sunday lunches. I let them stew in the illusion that I'd retreated back into the shadows. But in reality, I was watching, listening, collecting. The first thing I did was gather proof. I started with my own work. I dug up every blueprint I'd drafted, every email exchange with contractors, every invoice I'd coordinated. I printed it all, filed it neatly into a binder I labeled evidence. Then I backed it up digitally, cloud storage, external drives, even a copy mailed to a friend out of state. I wasn't just protecting myself, I was building a weapon. Next, I collected their lies. I clipped every article quoting Claire as the mastermind behind the renovations. I saved recordings of her radio interview, transcripts of her speeches at the gala, even screenshots of her Instagram posts bragging about her project. Each piece went into the binder, side by side with my blueprints. Truth and lie, side by side, The contrast was damning. But evidence alone wasn't enough. I needed credibility. Allies. People who would stand beside me when the time came. The first ally came unexpectedly. Roger, the lead contractor I'd worked with on the house. One afternoon, I asked him to meet for coffee. He arrived in his dusty work boots, hat pushed back on his head, and when I explained what had happened, his face twisted in disgust. "You're telling me," he said, voice low, "they're giving Claire credit for the project? Claire, who showed up twice and complained about the dust?" I nodded. "Hell no," he growled. "Rachel, I'll vouch for you any day. Anyone asks, I'll tell them the truth. You were the one in charge. Without you, that place would still be rotting." These words were a balm on wounds I'd carried for years. For once, someone saw me, believed me. The second ally was even more personal. Aunt Lillian, my mother's older sister. She'd always been the black sheep, an artist who'd run off to New Mexico instead of marrying a banker. My parents spoke of her with disdain, but I'd secretly adored her growing up. When I called her, her laughter crackled through the phone. "Rachel, my invisible niece! How's life in the shadow of the Morgans?" I told her everything. The renovations, the erasure, the gala, Claire's lies. She was quiet for a moment, then said, "Darling, you've got two choices. You can keep letting them write you out of their story, or you can pick up the pen and write it yourself." I swallowed hard. "I want to write it myself." "Then do it," she said firmly. "And when you do, call me. I'll help however I can." With allies and evidence, all that remained was timing. Timing, I knew, was everything. If I confronted them in private, they'd deny it, twist the narrative, make me look hysterical. If I went too soon, they'd find ways to bury it. I needed a stage, a public one. And as if the universe was listening, the perfect opportunity landed in my lap. The Hawthorne Historic Society, the same organization that had awarded my parents for the renovation, announced their annual gala, a black tie event covered by the local paper, where my family would almost certainly be invited to bask in more praise. The thought made my skin prickle. That room, filled with city officials, preservationists, wealthy donors. If the truth came out there, it wouldn't just sting, it would scorch. So, I planned. For weeks, I mapped it all out like an architectural design. Step 1. Secure a way onto the guest list. Aunt Lillian, of course, had connections. She promised to get me an invitation. Step 2. Prepare the evidence. I refined my binder, creating a sleek presentation folder. On the left, my original designs. On the right, their public lies. I even printed side-by-side photos, my sketches, Claire's Instagram captions. The theft was undeniable. Step 3. Practice. I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, rehearsing my speech. Not a rant, not a scream, calm, professional, lethal. My name is Rachel Morgan, and I am the architect of the Hawthorne Street renovation. Tonight, you've heard my sister and parents take credit for my work. Here is the truth. I imagined the gasps, the whispers, the shifting eyes, and each time I rehearsed, I felt the fear loosen its grip. But planning revenge is never clean. It's messy, emotional. One night, after hours of rehearsing, I collapsed onto my couch, shaking. Was I ready to burn it all down? Was I ready for the fallout? Because once I did this, there was no going back. My parents would never forgive me. Claire would hate me forever. I would torch every bridge to the family I had spent my whole life trying to win over. The thought made my stomach twist. But then I remembered Mrs. Delaney in the grocery store, gushing about Claire's vision. I remembered scrolling through the gala photos alone. I remembered Mom's words. It just sounds better coming from her. The rage steadied me. Burning those bridges wasn't a loss, it was freedom. The final piece came unexpectedly. I got an email from a local journalist, Samantha Hayes, who had written one of the articles quoting Claire. She asked if I'd be willing to comment for a follow-up piece on Denver's preservation heroes. My hands shook as I typed back, "Yes, but I need to tell you the truth." We met at a cafe. I laid out my binder, explained everything. Samantha listened, eyes narrowing as she flipped through the evidence. Finally, she leaned back. "Rachel, this is huge. But are you ready for what comes with it? Because once this hits print, there's no undoing it. I swallowed. I'm ready. She smiled faintly. Good. Then let's tell your story. By the time the gala rolled around, I wasn't the same Rachel who had crumbled in her apartment months earlier. My hands still shook, sure, but my spine was steel. I had allies, I had evidence, and soon I would have a microphone. As I zipped up my dress the night of the event, I whispered to myself, they wanted me invisible. Tonight, I'll be unforgettable. The night of the Hawthorne Historic Society Gala, the air was sharp with early spring chill, but my skin buzzed with heat. My dress, a simple black gown, elegant but unassuming, clung to me like armor. In my clutch, tucked neatly between lipstick and a phone, was the slim binder that would gut my family's reputation in one clean stroke. The gala was held in the Grandview Hotel ballroom, a glittering cavern of crystal chandeliers, polished marble, and tables draped in cream linen. The kind of place my parents thrived in, where handshakes meant status and whispers could crown or kill you. I walked through the double doors, my ticket clutched tight, and felt the weight of eyes. Not everyone knew me, of course, but enough did. Enough for whispers to ripple. Rachel Morgan? Isn't she the other daughter? The architect one? Yes, the other daughter. Tonight, that would change. I spotted them near the front. My parents, Harold and Vivian, radiant in evening wear. Claire, in a silver gown that glittered like fish scales, surrounded by admirers. She laughed, head tossed back, basking in the glow of being the family star. They didn't see me at first. Good. Let them think they owned the stage. I kept to the edges, sipping sparkling water, watching the choreography of power unfold. Politicians clinking glasses with donors, socialites comparing diamond bracelets, my parents shaking hands, their smiles wide and practiced. And then it began. The president of the Historic Society took the stage, microphone in hand. Tonight we honor not only preservation, but the visionaries who remind us of the value of history reworn, and few embody that spirit like the Morgans. Applause thundered, my stomach tightened. Please welcome Harold and Vivian Morgan and their daughter for their extraordinary contributions to the Hawthorne Street restoration. They walked on stage, beaming, Claire between them like a crown jewel. Applause swelled again. My hand shook, but I held tight to my clutch. Claire took the microphone first. Her voice was syrupy, polished. This project was a labor of love. It was about honoring our past while building a future worthy of our community. I was humbled to play a role in preserving something so important. Humbled. I nearly choked. The slideshow began, photos of the renovated house flashing across the screen. Each one a knife. My designs. My decisions. My sweat. And beneath each photo, this same poisonous caption. Vision by Claire Morgan. The crowd murmured in admiration. Claire smiled, soaking it in. My parents clasped her hands like proud monarchs, and something in me snapped. I walked forward, my heels clicked against marble, cutting through the applause. Heads turned, whispers swelled louder. Rachel! Rachel Morgan? I reached the edge of the stage. For a moment, Claire's eyes widened in shock, then narrowed in contempt. What are you doing here? She hissed, low enough for only me to hear. I smiled. Telling the truth. Before anyone could stop me, I mounted the steps. The MC stammered, unsure what to do, but I was already at the microphone, my binder in hand. Good evening, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. My name is Rachel Morgan. You've just seen photos of the Hawthorne Street renovation, a project many of you admired, a project credited to my sister. I paused, letting silence spread. The crowd shifted uneasily. But here's the truth. Claire Morgan did not design that house. She did not draft the plans. She did not oversee the contractors. She did not negotiate the preservation decisions. I did. Every single detail of that project came from my hands, my mind, my work. Gasps, murmurs, my parents' faces drained of color. Claire froze, her smile brittle. I opened a binder, flipping it toward the audience. These are my original blueprints, dated, signed, and approved by contractors. These are the invoices I coordinated.
Here are the emails with preservation officers. And here, I clicked a remote I'd tucked in, and the projector flickered to a split screen. On the left, my sketches. On the right, Claire's Instagram posts bragging about her design choices. The similarities were undeniable. Whispers turned into sharp, shocked voices. "That's plagiarism," someone muttered. Claire lunged for the microphone, her voice shrill. "She's lying! She's jealous! She's always been jealous!" I raised my hand, silencing her. If I'm lying, why do contractors like Roger Mason remember me leading every meeting? Why does the Preservation Board have my name on file? Why do these blueprints bear my signature, not hers? I held the binder higher. The truth is simple. My family erased me. They stole my work, and they paraded it as their own because in their world, the golden child gets the credit and the black sheep gets silence. The room was electric. The chandelier light seemed harsher, cutting. My parents' smiles had vanished, replaced with tight, panicked expressions. Claire's face twisted in fury, her mask crumbling. From the crowd, a voice called, "Is this true?" Another, "Claire, did you lie about all this?" My sister sputtered, but no words came. My mother stepped forward, desperate. "This isn't the place, Rachel. This is exactly the place." I cut in, my voice sharp as glass, "Because this is where you built your little empire of lies, and tonight, I'm tearing it down." I turned back to the crowd, my voice steady. For years, I tried to earn my family's respect. I worked, I built, I created, and every time, they dismissed me. But erasing me from my own work, claiming my vision as Claire's, I closed the binder with a snap. That was their mistake, because I will not be invisible. Not anymore. Silence. Then, slowly, applause. It started small, from the back, a couple of preservationists nodding firmly. Then more joined, until the room was clapping, not for my parents, not for Claire, for me. My family stood frozen on stage, their empire cracking in real time. Mom's face was pale, her hand trembling against Dad's arm. Dad's jaw was clenched so hard I thought his teeth would break. Claire's eyes burned holes into me, her perfect mask shattered. And me? I stood tall, the weight of invisibility lifting from my shoulders for the first time in my life. Fallout doesn't explode, it seeps. It seeps into every corner of a life, staining everything it touches. And for my family, the stain of that night at the gala spread fast. The very next morning, the Denver Chronicle ran with the headline, "Architect daughter exposes family at gala. Claire Morgan accused of plagiarizing sister's work." Underneath was a photo of me at the microphone, binder in hand, fire in my eyes. Beside it, a shot of Claire's frozen smile, my parents flanking her like toppled statues. The article didn't hold back. It quoted my speech, included photos of my blueprints, and even had a statement from Roger the contractor. Rachel Morgan was the lead on every decision. Without her, the house would have fallen apart. Anyone saying otherwise is lying. My parents' empire of image cracked in print. At first, they tried denial. Claire posted on Instagram, "Sad my sister is trying to destroy our family with lies. Please respect our privacy." The comment section, once filled with adoration, now burned with skepticism. "Where are your blueprints then, Claire?" one wrote. "Rachel had receipts. You had captions." Not a good look to steal credit from your own sister. The tide was turning. In the neighborhood, whispers became icy stares. At the farmer's market, where Mom once reigned like royalty, vendors stopped offering free samples. At church, people who once clamored for Dad's attention avoided eye contact. And Claire? The invitations dried up. No more speaking gigs, no more galas, just silence and a reputation in tatters. One Sunday, I walked into church and felt the shift immediately. Instead of the usual applause from my family, there was a hush. People glanced at me with quiet nods of respect, even Titty. My parents sat stiff in the pews, their eyes forward, faces pale. It was surreal. At work, I was nervous at first. Would my coworkers think I'd gone too far? Would they see me as unprofessional? But instead, they rallied. My boss pulled me aside. "Rachel," he said, sliding a newspaper across my desk. "I read the piece. I want you to know I'm proud of you. Most people wouldn't have had the guts." My throat tightened. For once, I wasn't invisible.
But at home, the Morgans' home, silence turned to war. Claire showed up at my apartment one night, mascara streaked, eyes blazing. She didn't knock. She pounded. When I opened the door, she shoved past me.
You ruined me, she screamed. Do you even realize what you've done? I had everything, Rachel, and now nothing. Everyone thinks I'm a fraud.
I folded my arms.
Maybe because you are. She spun, eyes wild. You're jealous. You've always been jealous. That's why you did this, to destroy me. I stepped closer, my voice calm but sharp. No, Claire, I didn't destroy you. You destroyed yourself the second you decided my work looked better with your name on it. She flinched, lips trembling, then stormed out, slamming the door so hard my walls shook. The confrontation didn't end there. A week later, Mom called. Her voice was brittle, barely restrained. Rachel, how could you humiliate us like that? Do you know what you've done to this family? I almost laughed. What I've done? Mom, I told the truth. That's all. If the truth humiliated you, maybe you should ask why. Her breath hitched. We only wanted what was best for you. No, I said coldly. You wanted what looked best for you, and I was never it. She hung up. Meanwhile, Dad stayed silent. He didn't call, didn't text. But I heard through the grapevine that his old colleagues at the hospital were whispering too. If he lies about his daughter, what else does he lie about? His credibility, once unshakable, was crumbling. The Morgan name had lost its shine. And me? I breathed. For the first time in years, I breathed without the weight of invisibility pressing me down. My work was mine again. My name was attached to it. And in the wake of the chaos, something unexpected happened. Opportunities bloomed. The Historic Society reached out, not to apologize exactly, but to offer me a feature in their quarterly magazine. We'd love to highlight your process, they said. My boss gave me more responsibility at the firm. Even Samantha, the journalist, connected me with preservationists who wanted to collaborate. I wasn't just recognized, I was respected. Still, revenge doesn't erase scars. Nights were quiet in my apartment, sometimes too quiet. I'd catch myself staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd gone too far. Wondering if maybe, just maybe, I should have let it go. But then I'd remember that gala slideshow, my designs flashing with Claire's name, my parents beaming as though I didn't exist, and the doubt would burn away. The final blow came months later at a neighborhood fundraiser. My parents showed up, trying to reclaim some semblance of normalcy. Claire wasn't with them. She'd retreated from public life, her once bustling Instagram now abandoned. I was there too, invited by the preservation board. Halfway through the night, someone asked Gad about the house. His face tightened, and for the first time in my life, I watched him stumble. It was Rachel's project, he muttered. I almost didn't believe it. Harold Morgan admitting it out loud. Not pridefully, not lovingly, but because he had no other choice. I sipped my drink, savoring the moment. That's the thing about revenge. It doesn't just end in fire, it lingers. It forces the ones who erased you to live with the truth every single day. And my family, they're still living with it. Revenge is never clean. It doesn't wrap itself in a pretty bow, handing you a perfect ending. It's jagged, messy, full of fallout you didn't expect. But it's also clarifying. Months after the gala, I stood outside the Hawthorne house. The house I had resurrected. The house that had nearly broken me. Its brick facade glowed in the setting sun, the stained glass windows catching fire in the light. For the first time, I could look at it without bitterness. Because now, everyone knew the truth. Neighbors waved at me as they walked by. One even stopped. Rachel, I just want to say, thank you. That house is beautiful. You saved it. I smiled, a real smile, one that didn't ache. Thank you. That means more than you know. Inside me, something shifted. For years, I had chased validation from the wrong people. I had begged my family to see me, to value me. But when they didn't, I thought it meant I was nothing. I was wrong. Their blindness wasn't proof of my failure. It was proof of their weakness. My parents, they retreated into silence.
Mom avoids social events. Dad no longer commands admiration with a glance. They live in the shell of the reputation they once protected like gold. Claire? She's a ghost of her former self. No more stages. No more glittering gowns. She tried to claw her way back, but once the truth stains you, it never really washes off. And me? I've built more than houses. I've built myself. My projects are respected. My name carries weight. My voice is mine. Do I regret exposing them? No. The only regret I carry is how long I let them convince me I wasn't enough. Because here's the truth I finally understand. Revenge isn't about watching them burn. It's about walking away from the fire with your head high, knowing you lit it for a reason. And I have never stood staller. So tell me, what would you have done? Would you have stayed silent, swallowed their lies, let them erase you? Or would you have done what I did? Stood on that stage, binder in hand, and let the truth cut through every whisper, every mask, every polished lie. If this story made your heart race, if you clenched your fists when they erased me, or smiled when justice was finally served, hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already, because here, we don't just tell revenge stories. We honor them. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share your own stories of being underestimated, dismissed, or betrayed. Because every time we speak, every time we refuse to stay invisible, we take back power they thought they'd stolen forever. Remember, revenge isn't only about tearing them down. It's about rising, stronger, louder, unforgettable. And that's exactly what I did.